Okay, I've got a couple specific kind of questions about,
Okay.
related to businesses and whatnot. You mentioned several times the granary down here on Main Street.
Right.
Do you remember, was that always there when you lived in Mansfield?
Yes.
Or do you okay,
yes.
so that was...
My uncle worked there.
Really?
And the reason I remember it is because I remember my mother crying, and I wondered, she said, we have to go to the granary, we have to go to the granary. And it isn't that far from Lyda Street, you just run
Sure.
down Harker Street.
Yeah.
And we all ran down there, and what had happened is one of the fellas had fallen into the granary, and he was instantly suffocated, and nobody knew who it was. And her brother worked there. And and then a lot of times I would go down to the granary, and my uncle, who lived out on 7th Avenue with my grandma and grandpa, he had, it would have been a Model, what would it have been back then? Model T?
Model T, I believe, was the...
Yeah, Model T.
Yeah.
And he would sometimes, we would ride out to Graham, was with him, and it was like a Model T that had like a bed in the back, and he would take grain home because he raised rabbits and chickens. And so our life was a little bit connected with the granary because of that.
Okay.
But I don't remember, and I do remember going down, and if we wanted to go to my grandmother's, who lived on 7th Avenue, we would go down to, past the granary, go across the tracks, and walk the tracks up to Orange Street. Right. And that's when you had the trains that just threw soot everywhere, right, And all of us kids were always scared because there seemed to be, when we were little, it seemed to be such big cracks between, where you would walk. And we'd just hang onto my mom's skirt and away we'd go. But the granary played a part in my life because of my uncle.
I see. But was that didn't turn out to be him that fell into the...
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Yeah,
but it was someone that he was working with.
That's terrible. I had heard a similar story to that.
Because when he came out, he was just staggering. And he said it just, when it came down the chute, the poor unfortunate fellow just went. The chute caught him and took him right straight down. This happened not too long ago. I heard it on TV of someone in Nebraska that happened to. You have no chance.
Well,
you cannot dig your way out because as you dig up, it just pours down. It's horrible.
That's terrible.
It's just horrible.
It really is.
But that was always a big running concern. Because they had the tracks right there to transport. And that was always a big business.
Yeah, I've just personally been trying to find out when that came here. When I've had no luck in terms of any records or trying to figure out. And everybody seems to think it was always there. When they remember.
To me, I would say the same thing.
Sure.
It was always there.
Yeah, it's interesting. What about there was a business we spoke to a woman, Esther Bolliance.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yes, she's a good friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any memories of her family's shop there on Harker Street? Does that
That's where
mean
my
anything?
mom always went to the grocery store.
Okay.
Yeah, we always went down there.
Yeah. Any memories?
It was just, they were just super good people.
Yeah.
In fact, last year I went up to visit Esther. And she looked at me for a minute. I hadn't seen her in ages. As soon as I told my name, she just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was one I was just really glad to have her come forward and tell us about that. And we got some really great photos of the place and whatnot.
She'd have the stories.
Very nice
When
lady.
you, if you read the article that I wrote,
Yeah.
there used to be a man and his son, and they lived about, if you went down Harker, and you would be between Mulberry and Maine, there was, I I don't know, beer joint, the Cameo.
Yeah.
Called the Cameo. Okay. Okay, well, a couple doors before you got to the Cameo, there was a man there, and he was a bootlegger. Okay. And we always called, I don't know if that was their original name, but we always called him Mr. Gucci, right? And what we did as kids is we went down to the railroad tracks, and we walked the tracks, and we took a burlap bag with us, and we looked for, some of us looked for coal that fell off the train, and mostly we were looking for whiskey and wine bottles. And we would take those home, and my mother would have a big zinc tub, and she would wash them, you know, till they were like new. And we would take them down to Mr. Gucci, and he would give us 2 cents a piece for them. And we would take the money home, and my mom had kept a mason jar, and my brothers all sold newspapers. They would bring their money home. It all went in the mason jar. Everything went in the mason jar, and it was the family fund. I mean, it was the family bank. Right.
So what would you do with that when it, was that just to, do you buy food and such with it?
No,
Or
right.
like, was that?
It's how we bought the milk, and
Okay.
it's how we bought whatever. Mom needed yeast to make the bread. And,
So everybody contributing a little bit
right.
to the
And
cause.
nobody thought anything of it. They just plunked it in.
Yeah. And it's funny that you bring up the Cameo, because that was another place I was going to ask you about. My understanding is it was at the corner of Harker and Lilly, or
Yes.
Harker.
Oh,
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Harker and Lilly.
And the reason that has come up a lot was the idea that it was a place where a lot of, you know, a black patron
That's right.
had
They
to go
lived
to
on-
they had to go to the side door. They couldn't come in the front.
And a lot of them lived on Daisy and Lily. That was a section where they congregated themselves. I mean, I don't think they were segregated by anyone. I think
That's just
their
where
own community.
some of the first blacks that moved
Yeah,
into the
it was
North
their
End were in
community.
that area.
Right.
Is that am I correct in that assumption? And
Right.
so, yeah, I guess I don't know. Do you have any memories of the camp? It was a bar, right? Or was it a
Yes.
bar restaurant kind of place? Or
Was it a
any
restaurant?
memories?
I never was in it. I don't know. I just I walked back and forth, and it was there for years and years
yeah,
and years.
was
I mean,
there,
it
but
ran a
I
long
can't-
time.
I can't remember.
Okay.
Well, I think there's a law that all bars had to sell some food, so it
Oh, I
would
see.
be, yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting.
But it was there for years and years and years.
Okay. So do you remember when sort of the first black families moved? I mean, you mentioned you had a few neighbors, but I mean, because the perception now, I mean, the North End is primarily, there's a lot of blacks in that
yes,
in
that's
that
right.
particular area.
All over.
Yes,
Um,
right.
Now I know you having grown up in the Johns Park
right.
area. Any memories of how that started to change? Or I mean, or maybe you had already left by that point, or
I think probably I had.
Yeah, the ones that were there were like, they played with us, they were like us. There was no difference according with them. But the ones out there now, I mean, it's a lot different. It's changed. They're different type of people.
Because I moved away from there, and then years later, after I was married, we bought a house on Bowman Street, which is in the North End. And it was right after the war, and so all the houses were the same. I mean, it was like an allotment, right? And even when I think about it, I go, okay. And it was nice, but it was just, I don't know. And across the street from us, there was an elderly family, okay? I'll tell you a cute story. I had twin boys, and the woman that lives across the street from me, I think it was her and her brother, and they were both very elderly. And then you hung your clothes on a clothesline. There was no washers and dryers.
Sure.
And so one day I was out and I was hanging up all the diapers, and I looked across the street and the woman was going. And it's the only time I ever remembered her talking to me, and she said, no child could have, well, how long do you wait to wash those diapers? No one child could soil that many diapers. And I told her, I went, and she went, I don't care what you say about peace.
Oh.
She said, and so I told her, why don't you come over and see my babies?
Mm-hmm.
And so she did.
Yeah.
And she went, oh my goodness, you've got 3. And I told her, yeah, that's right, I have 3.
Yeah.
But there were no black families on that street then. Okay, later, we had moved away, and we built a house out on Piper Road. And then right across the street from where we were living, they built the King's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And those were almost primarily black.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of, that's the only time I can remember of being glad that I moved away from a black family. And believe me, it was not a prejudice thing, but the type of people were there were like a criminal element.
Oh, yeah. They changed quite a bit.
You know, I mean, they were like, every weekend somebody was getting shot and killed there.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, black or white, that's not what you want to live here.
No, you want your family out of there, right?
Right. So, gosh, I had another.
You had some more
I blanked on my other question. I have lots of questions. Again, shoot.
But I don't really remember the change in the black community in the North End. Do you? No.
I think a lot of people we talked to, I think it was after, like, closely after World War II, I think a lot of, men had got out of the service and they were given some kind of like, almost like a lump sum of money where a lot of them bought houses or moved. I think it was,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that time, that era that rings a bell, like that was kind of when the influx happened, or?
Well, when the guys got out of the service, yeah, they got $250 allotment to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what they charged for the down payment of what we bought.
Mm-hmm.
No, they knew. I
Yeah,
mean,
sure. Imagine that, right?
Yeah, they seen you coming, right? And certainly the black sort of got the same, but where they built, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Do you?
No, not really.
Well, I think in what we heard was actually a lot of folks coming from the South,
Mm-hmm.
having
Yeah.
a little bit of money and being able finally
I
to
believe
take
that.
to bring
Yeah,
their
that's
family
true.
up. Then couple that with all the jobs. I mean,
Right,
there's just
because this was a mecca of business.
sure.
I mean, actually, that's why we have so many people from Kentucky
Mm-hmm.
and West Virginia, and because the steel mill was humming like crazy.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
Westinghouse was still going, and Tappan's. At one time, I can prove this to you. At one time, if you wanted a job in Mansfield and you didn't find one, you didn't look for one that day. Because I was working at Kroger's, right? And then they built the first supermarket in town, which was the A&P, and it was down on
Where Jones's
Bowman.
used to be.
Yeah,
Used
Bowman
to
right
be.
across the tracks on
Okay.
Bowman.
Mhm.
And I worked there. And the reason I left Kroger's, because I made 28 cents an hour, right? And that was better than a lot of people were
Yeah, I
making.
know, but
I know it sounds insane, but it was better than some of the girls were making as waitresses and what
Sure.
on. Okay, so I went down to the A&P and I put my application in, and they said, "Can you start tomorrow?" And I thought, oh my gosh, my dad was a stickler about you give 2 weeks notice.
Mm.
I don't care what
Yeah.
your circumstances are, you give 2 weeks notice. And I thought, oh geez. And I thought, well, how can I do this? So what I did is I went to school till 11 o'clock because I had all my credits. I went down and I worked at Kroger's until 4, and I left Kroger's and I went down and worked at the A&P till they closed for the 2 weeks,
Mhm.
right? And I think that I was making 28 cents there, and the A&P was a union store, and they were paying 37, and I thought I died and went to heaven. No lie.
That's
no
quite
lie.
a bump.
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, and I loved working there because I loved working with people.
Mhm.
And I worked there until I married. And then years later, I was in there shopping, and the man I originally worked for was from England, and his name was Mr. Tithers, and his son had taken over. And his son just said, "How you doing, Betty?" And I said, "I'm doing fine." And he said, "Hey, your kids are getting pretty big, Betty." And I said, "Well, yeah, they're doing great." And he said, "How come you're not in here at least working half a day?" And I told him, "What?" And he said, "What are you doing? Just sitting home being lazy?" And I don't, "Oh, yeah, right. You know, I got 3 kids. I'm just being lazy. Else can be, right?" And so I thought, well, I'll think about it, right?
Yeah.
And I told him, "How much do you paying out? 40 cents? I mean, just being a smarty." And he said, "No, Betty, we pay 78. And I went home and I said to my husband, "I'm going to start at the A&P next week." And I worked there 6 years. But I had the best deal because my kids were going to St. Mary's, and I had to take them and bring them because they were not allowed to ride the city bus or the school bus. And it was a parochial thing. Okay, and so I had to take them to school and then pick them up at 2:30. So I worked from 8:30 to 2, and then I went and got my kids. And I did that for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
And I enjoyed it. I mean,
Yeah.
I liked it.
Okay.
So.
I remember the other question I was going to ask you. In Johns Park, do you remember a fountain?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
is
yeah.
that- because we have this old photograph of a fountain, and nobody remembers it. That we
In
spoke
fact,
to.
in that book, there used to be that flower garden. If you go up the sidewalk to the building from Buckley, on the right-hand side, there was this huge, huge flower garden, and it had a bridge over it, and the water would falls that went over the little bitty bridge.
Really?
And this old guy would take care of it. And I was there for years, and then the old fellow quit taking care of it. I don't know whether he got ill or what. And then nobody would do it, so they took it up. But I have pictures of that in that book.
Okay, great.
They kept Johns Park immaculate.
Oh, yes, we did. Everybody did, but the kids really did it.
Yeah, because it was like
That was your
personal.
home.
It was a personal pride.
That was our home.
Yeah.
Really.
Any memories of North Lake Park?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We always went to North Lake Park.
Went to the movies.
Yeah.
We used to go.
We used to walk
down
out the tracks.
Yeah.
Now you say went to the movies. Were they projected movies out there at the park?
Outside
or-
door. They were
Okay.
outside movies.
They were
Tell us a
against
little
the
bit about
building.
that.
They,
Yeah.
yeah, they put the screen up and then, but we used to go out Bowman Street and walk the tracks all the way up and cross the tracks to go into the park and that. And that's how we done it. And walk them home at night. And I remember one night, I don't know why, what was supposed to happen that night, I don't know. And anyways, this one girl that always went with me, her mom came and she had a flashlight and stuff, and she walked us down the tracks. She was going to make sure we got home that night. But I can't remember what the occasion was. But she
There must
was
have been
good.
some kind of scare in the
But
neighborhood or something. Yeah.
she made sure we got home that night.
It's a strange thing. When I was in high school and I worked at the A&P, they would stay open on Saturday from 9 in the morning till 9 at night. Well, by the time you checked out your register and got your code and all that, there by 9:30. I walked right down through the flats by myself.
Never thought anything about it.
Because I lived on Wayne Street then. Never, ever, ever in the 4 years did I ever have anyone bother me. In fact, when I would go down the street, if you would see someone coming towards you, they would move off the street. If it was a gentleman, he would get off he would move to the grassy spot and let you pass.
Interesting.
That's the way they were.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Now you're scared to walk anywhere. I mean, I'm not scared by nature, but I'm scared for my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren.
Sure.
Yeah. Right.
So,
And even though they live in nice areas, I'm still scared for them.
yeah,
Mhm.
things have changed.
Right. But no, never, ever did I ever have anyone.
So you mentioned that, we were talking about North Lake Park. You said they projected films on a building.
Mhm.
Now, what building would that have been? We're not talking about like the Coliseum.
It probably was a bathhouse.
Yeah, I think so.
It was a
They had
bathhouse.
put a big screen up, and
Mhm.
then they put chairs up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or benches or whatever.
And benches and
Yeah.
chairs up, and we would sit there and watch a movie.
Mhm.
We'd go every week.
Mhm.
Interesting. Now, was that free, or did they
Yeah.
charge you to get it?
It was free.
Free.
Yeah,
Huh.
it was just a community thing. Mhm.
Interesting.
But
I
it was
wonder-
against the bathhouse, and they just put like a screen like you had there, or just white, whatever,
Yeah.
and then film.
Well, I'm wondering, like, was the bathhouse then right by where the lake was there, or, I mean, just kind of,
Sort of close there.
yeah.
It was in that area, by
Yeah,
the pool.
yeah.
Yeah, up a
By the
little.
pool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, was this during the era when there were rides and things down there? I know, there was always the Coliseum roller rink, right?
Yes.
And then,
They had the
r-
skating rink there,
The
yeah.
skating
Mhm.
rink was there, but they
Mhm.
already took down the roller coaster.
So
There
the-
used to be a
Yeah,
roller
there was
Right.
a wooden roller coaster there that they took down.
years ago.
Yeah.
We used
Okay.
to.
It used to be called Casino Park.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We've heard that.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
But that was before your time.
No,
No.
we used
Oh,
to
that
go
was-
out to
oh,
it.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, we-
I,
we used
I have
to
no
go out to
concept,
it.
so.
Hey, I'm 85.
And then after they quit running the roller coaster, the track was still there, you know.
Okay.
Mhm.
And we used to go there, and them kids, we used to walk all the way up to the top and back
Oh,
down.
jeez.
Like, I
You know, a strange
yeah.
thing,
Dumb kids, huh?
so many people, like ladies at our age, right,
Mhm.
over the hill ladies, if you ask them where they met their husbands, at
The
least
park.
75% of the time they'll say at the skating rink.
Mm,
Yeah,
I believe
Because
it.
it was the social mecca.
Yeah.
where
yes,
they
it
met.
was.
So tell us about that. Do you have memories of going
Oh,
skating?
Oh, we used to
yeah.
go
Yeah.
once a week.
At least.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
It was
we
a
used to
Friday or
rent-
Saturday night thing.
We
Mhm.
used to rent the skates.
Yeah, you had to rent the skates just
Yeah.
like you did bowling shoes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
I don't
then they had
It cost us to get in?
an organist that played.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it was just jammed. I mean,
Oh,
it was just
man,
jammed.
yeah.
You had to wait to squeeze in to get on into the main circle.
Mhm.
And it was because it was a round circle then. And then there'd be all kinds of kids. There were like benches against the wall, and there'd be all kinds of kids sitting there waiting, just being friendly, just
Mhm.
guys and girls talking and
Yeah.
so forth. But it always amazed me at how many people will say, I met him at the skating rink.
Mhm.
They used to do, there used to be some people who used to do some real fancy skating.
Oh, yeah,
I
they
mean,
did.
dance skating, you know.
Mhm.
Oh, man, we used to love to watch them.
Mhm.
Now, that's another thing that came up in terms of segregation. We had heard that, and I may have these nights wrong, but I heard that like blacks could only skate on, I think it was Monday night.
That's probably so,
And
because I
then-
don't remember
I don't
seeing them when
remember.
I went.
I didn't either.
Did you see them when you
No.
went?
And then
I
there,
never thought about that, but no,
yeah,
no,
That's
they
what
must
we've
have
been-
had a special night.
they had, it was, I think it was Monday night they could skate, and then,
What in God's name was wrong with us?
Yeah.
well, it wasn't, you guys were kids,
No,
what,
I mean,
but
I mean
our society,
generation.
our,
I meant the generation.
I hear
Yeah.
you, yeah. And we were also told that Wednesday nights they had special dances at the Friendly House that were, for
That's
blacks.
right.
Do you have any memories of that? I mean,
No, I don't.
yeah,
Mhm.
but
Um,
now, did you guys ever go to dances at the Friendly House? Was that something that ever?
I didn't go to dances at the Friendly
Because
House.
we went to the park.
Yeah, because
Okay.
we went to the park.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
But when we went to school at senior high, I made many black friends, girls that,
Mhm.
because, okay, in my time, I played basketball, but you played intramural.
Mhm.
You didn't play other schools.
Yeah.
And so I knew a lot of the girls because they were in sports.
Mhm.
And they played volleyball and all the thing, there
And
was
you-
no
you would play
segregation in the-
together,
That's right.
blacks and whites, okay.
There was no segregation in the sports. And the only time I ever felt really, really sorry for the black girls was in swimming class. because we had advantages. We could go to North Lake Park, we could go to Liberty Park and swim. They could not go there. So when these kids hit senior high and they had to get in the pool, do you imagine how scary that was?
Yeah.
No.
And we had, do you remember Mrs. Younger?
No, because I didn't go swimming.
You didn't?
No.
Well, I was on the swim team, and because I swam at Liberty Park, my husband was a lifeguard there, and I swam a lot. And these girls would get in the water, and they were terrified. I mean, they were terrified. You could hear them screaming. And she would just, well, I'll bet she's warm where she's at.
Well, we talked about going to Liberty Park. We used to take a gang of us from Johns Park, and we used to walk down Harker, go across the Harker, down under by the Ohio Brass.
Right.
And the guys in there used to wave at us.
Mm-hmm.
And then up a hill, across the tracks and up a hill,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'd come out on Orange Street.
Orange. Yeah,
And
they
past,
orange.
past fire station,
Mm-hmm.
and we
That's where my
walked.
husband worked, yeah.
Yeah, we walked all the way out to Liberty Park to, just
right.
to go in and get our feet wet or swim or whatever, you know.
Well, it was the
And-
nicer of the pools.
And
in town.
we went.
Mhm.
There was one day, and we got to swim for nothing, from 1 to 3 o'clock, and then we'd walk home. By the time we got home, we were ready to go back again.
Well, that was a big meeting center for all the kids too.
Yeah.
Right. Mhm. So, you wonder what the kids do now, besides play video games.
Yeah,
Watch
Not a whole lot of
television.
options.
there really
No,
are.
and isn't that too bad?
Yeah.
Mhm.
a
Isn't
shame.
that too
And you're
bad?
half afraid to let your kids go out and play at certain places. All the things that go on, or you hear that go on.
Well, it don't matter. It don't matter what section of town you're in.
Mhm.
It truly does not matter. Mhm.
I always took my kids out, and sometimes we packed a lunch, and we used to go for a walk, go see things, you know. And sometimes we'd go sit at Kingwood and watch the
Mhm.
ducks and whatever, and then we'd go walk through the parks and just talk, and we'd have our sandwich going through the parks.
Mhm.
And I took them out all the time.
I had to laugh. I was telling my son last week, we were sitting there talking, and he said, Mom, remember when I lived on Bowman Street, he said, we moved away from there when he was 6. And he said, Mom, do you remember taking us down to the Dairy Delight down by the fire station on Spring Mill? And I said, yeah. And he said, how did you do that with all 3 of us? I said, well, I put you and your twin brother in a wagon, and your sister was 3, and she would hold my hand and walk beside me. But it was like not a paved street.
Mhm.
You know, so it was pretty bumpy, right?
Yeah.
And we'd get halfway down, and then she would crawl back in back of the wagon. I'd pull all 3 of them. And he said, how come you never got any ice cream, Mom? And I said, because I only had 15
I was
cents.
to say you didn't have enough money.
That's right. And I said, because I got each of you kids a nickel cone.
Mhm.
And then I said to him, but don't feel sorry for me. I had more ice cream than you did, because every time their ice cream would melt, I'd have to lick the end. I said, I had lots more ice cream than you did.
Oh, yeah. We used to
And
go
he
there.
said, he said, I wish I could have done that with my daughter. And now his daughter's a nurse practitioner
Hmm.
at Children's Hospital down in Columbus.
Mhm.
But all changes are not good. Mhm. Some are, but not all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we grew up with nothing, and we learned to do with nothing and have a good time. We never fought with each other, and we just got along with everybody.
Because my daughter said to me, yes, it was her birthday yesterday, and she was down at the house, and she's an artist and a school teacher. And she said to me, Mom, how come every Christmas you cry? And I told her, because I feel unworthy I'm sitting in a chair like this or on the couch, and I've got stacks of gifts this high from all my grandkids, my kids. There's
Never
like
got
21
nothing.
gifts in front of me. And she said, you always cry. And I told him, I know. I said, I'm overcome. I'm overcome. And she said, is it because of when you were little? And I said, I don't know. I feel unworthy. And she said, Mom, you can't be unworthy. And I told her, well, but you can feel unworthy, right? And she said, well, you know, we just try to compensate for all that you do. And I told her, well, I know, but I just can't explain to you how overcome I am.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, if you come out to my house, you will see on my fireplace, on the mantle, you'll see one skate. One skate. Because when I lived on Lida Street for Christmas, my sister, who's 2 years younger than I, we got a pair of skates. We each got one.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And we were thrilled. We were thrilled.
Yeah.
And she always says
I
to
know.
me, you think you're so smart because you got the key. I mean, and I would say, oh, this.
Yeah.
And she,
Yeah,
and,
sure.
and every when I go to California, I take the key with me because she keeps the other skate on her mantle in her house. And there is such a difference. There is such a difference that you'd think I would be grateful, but I never wanted for much because I always was surprised at how much I had. You
Yeah.
understand that, don't
Sure,
you?
yeah.
Mhm. And I get overwhelmed. Mhm. And so I said to her yesterday, you know what we ought to pull names this year. And she said, Mom, we've never done that. And I told her, I know. And I told her, why don't we do this? Why don't we pull names and each person has to make one gift?
Yeah, that's what we.
Because we did this several years ago.
Mhm.
And I was amazed at what my kids come up with, right? And I said, and we should have the great-grandkids do it just to show them you don't need everything in the world. Mhm. Right. It's so different. It's mostly due to the fact that my time is near, and I want to show what can be done, that we all have. Well, maybe you don't think this way. I've got too much.
That's the way I feel.
Hmm?
That's the way I feel.
Yes, I've got too much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You don't appreciate what you have when you
No,
have everything.
I have too much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I did too much in my life, and really. And after I got married, I've been to, of course with him being in the Guard and stuff. Anyways, I've been to all the states, Alaska and Hawaii. And I have a relation in Germany, been to 10 countries over there, and we've just been all over.
Mhm.
And I have pictures. I'm one of these take pictures of everything.
Mhm.
I got picture books, travel stuff in them,
Yeah.
and I write what everything is, you know. And then when we're done with the trip, well, we went so many miles and it cost so much money, and anything that was, you know, I got a little thing written there.
That's great.
And so I have travel books for anybody who wants to look at them.
Mhm.
My kids laugh because I always say, you're going to earn every penny. I've saved so many things. I mean, I'm very neat, and my house is very neat,
Mhm.
but I have them packed, you know. And I said, it's going to take you so long to get with you. I say, God, it wasn't worth it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how much this has to do with North End, but it does have some. I used to go out and take pictures of, I call it Mansfield it was. I used to go through town. You used to be able to read in the paper like they were going to tear this down or they were going to tear that down. So I'd go up and take pictures of it. And then when it was tore down, I'd go back and take pictures of it. And I have a whole big book of it. And I took it up to the Scott up at the museum, and he's got it. And one time last year he had an opening, and he had a bunch of Mansfield stuff in there. And on this one pole, he had large pictures of a Leland Hotel. He stuck pictures of Mansfield. And I looked at him and I said, "Is that mine?" And he says, "Yeah."
Mm-hmm.
So he'd been using that book.
Mm-hmm.
And when I get done with this North End book, he's going to get it too.
Okay.
But he said he'd take care of it.
Great.
I figured that's a good place for it to go.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Was there protesters standing outside the Leland when you took your picture?
No.
Well, because I protested them taking down the Leland Hotel.
I didn't have any problems with what I
No,
did.
the reason I did that was mostly because my husband was on the fire department, and they had to inspect buildings. Do you know that they had, the wrecking ball had to take 3 whacks at it before they could bring it down?
Oh, yeah.
I had heard something like that.
Isn't
That
that
people would go.
incredible?
It is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And one time, we used to have a sister city, and it was in Africa, and influential people came from Africa, and my husband and I, well, not I, but my husband was chosen to represent Mansfield, and of course I went with him, and it was at the Leland Hotel, and these people were just dripping with gold and, you know, their long robes, and they were magnificent. And they thought the Leland Hotel ballroom was so grand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing you knew, they were tearing the darn thing down, and I was furious at that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, we used to have stuff in
Mhm.
there.
They're too anxious to tear down, and then a parking lot.
Yeah.
Mhm. They employed a lot of people at the Leland Hotel.
Sure.
Okay, we have brought so much on ourselves by doing this. We tear down, but we don't rebuild. Mhm. And so there's people without work, right? And as this continues, there's nowhere to go to look for work, right? I mean, you know, to make a living wage to raise a family,
Right.
you know. It just makes you crazy that they do that. Because my husband had a fit. He said, "Betty, they took your picture. It's in the paper. All the firemen saw it." And I told him, "I don't care."
That's what America's all about. You stand
Yeah.
up for what you believe in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, and I don't know if you ladies have anything that you'd like to add to the, anything we haven't covered, or.
Oh, I think we're
I mean-
winded. How about you?
Yeah.
I know it's been quite a long interview, but at any rate, we'd like to just thank you both
Yeah,
for coming
very
down.
good.
And
You're
really,
welcome.
really appreciate it.
I'm glad to see this take place.
Yeah, yeah, and then somebody gets something, and like I said, I'm gonna take my book and give it to the
Will this
museum.
Will this just only pertain to the north end? Will you pick up other things for the other parts of the city?
I believe the library, I don't know, we're primarily focused on the north end only because that's kind of, we're just where our boundaries are,
Yeah.
what the agency does, but I believe they were trying to do a citywide kind of deal. I don't know
Well,
what
that's
that
what
looks
I meant.
like.
Would you do citywide?
Yeah, I believe the library had plans to do. I don't know what I really don't know what that looks like. I don't know if they have the the manpower and the funds to be able to do something that wide of scale. But I believe that was the idea behind it originally.
Yeah, but I think their partnership with us has been a way for them to kind of do it on a budget. I mean,
Right.
in the sense that
Yeah, I know how that
we're
works,
getting
right.
paid by the Fran and Warren Rupp Foundation. This is one of many
The
many
Bowman
things.
Rupp.
Yeah, it's the relatives Fran
Right.
and Warren Rupp.
Right.
So this is one of many things we do here. One of my personal favorite things that we work on, but. I'd love to see it go citywide.
Well, I'd love to see it
we'll
go
have to see.
citywide.
Yeah.
We'll have to
Because
see.
after I left the north end, I moved to Lexington. And when I moved back to town, I would have been 15. And I lived in the east end of town. And the east end of town used to be a very, very nice place to live. Now, it's almost like
Yeah.
slums.
Yeah.
It's true.
But I lived at the corner of Wayne Street and Hollisford Road. And the house we lived in was like 2.5-story brick. And it had a wraparound porch. And it was very, very nice.
Yeah.
And before my mom died, she said to me one day, she said, Betty, will you take me and show me all the places we used to live? Well, hey, that was a day's work because, you know, we were all renters, so.
Yeah.
And I took her, and the only place I didn't take her was to the house over on Wayne Street.
Yeah.
Because somebody bought it and made a bar out of it and painted this beautiful red brick house yellow, tore off the wraparound porch. Right. And it looked like she wouldn't have known it anyway. And I
Yeah.
thought, no, I'm not going to show that.
Breaks your
That's
heart.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, just a follow-up question. The home that you lived on in the North End, well, that was a rental as well? You guys
Yes.
just
Mhm.
rented
Yeah.
that?
Mhm.
How about
The
you,
first-
Mrs. Carr? Was that
It was
same?
our house.
You guys
We
bought
bought
that?
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The first house we ever owned was in Lexington.
in Lexington.
We bought my dad bought a 100-year-old house that had no electricity,
Oh,
no
boy.
running water.
A fixer-upper, if you will? Or
An
updater?
Fixer up.
Yeah.
And we lived there for 3 years with no running water,
Hmm.
no electricity,
Wow.
and we did fine, thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.
We did not feel underprivileged. We did not feel, the house was black and foreboding. It had been built by a blacksmith.
Oh, wow.
It was pegged together.
Oh, jeez.
It was
That's-
pegged together.
That'll show
And
your
before,
age.
my dad, bless his heart, always taught us kids, and I think all of us have followed his example. Wherever you are, leave it better than you found it.
Yeah.
It's a good policy.
Yeah.
Yes, and when we left that house, it had been painted white with a green metal roof. It had electricity, running water, but it took him 7 years to do it.
Wow.
And those were after the North End, those were the best years of my life. Because
Yeah.
I was free to run and go
Yeah.
down to the creek. And my dad had we had 6 acres and he put most of it in produce.
Mhm.
And because he remembered working at the reformatory, right?
Mhm.
And then as a young girl, I would have been like 13 and my brother 15, we would come into town with my dad, who worked at Westinghouse. So that meant we got up at 5:15 each morning in the summer, and we came in, and his whole trunk of his car was full of vegetables. And then there were like a half a bushel basket for my brother, half a bushel basket for me. And we had to stay in the car till the 7:30 whistle blew at the brass, because we were not allowed to get out in the dark.
Mhm.
And then we would do all the North End. So before vegetable grows were ever invented, that's what I did.
So you're out selling vegetables?
We were
to-
selling vegetables
Gotcha.
door to door.
Okay.
And years later, when I met my husband, I had the biggest smile on my face because I'd been on his porch 100 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Small town.
And,
Oh, yeah.
and then we'd have to be back. We listened for the 2:30 whistle at the Ohio Brass and went back to the car.
I forgot about that whistle.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we'd give the money to Dad for the vegetables, right? And the only time we groaned, and even my dad would say, "I am so sorry," is when the sweet corn came in, because it was so heavy.
Oh,
boy.
yeah.
To carry all
Lot of
sweet
work.
corn.
Yes.
You'd have to go back to the car so many times, because
Yeah.
you'd only have like maybe 3 dozen. Hey, 3 dozen sweet corn is very heavy.
I'll bet, yeah.
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 So that's why I'm sitting here so tough today.
There you go.
We had to be tough.
Yeah.
You
We had to be tough.
That's right.
You know, really.
Right. Well, if you ladies don't have anything else you'd like to add, we'll go
Well,
ahead.
we're ready to go.
We'll wrap it up
Okay.
then.
Do you wanna
Thank you
show them that
thank you
we
so
were
much
talking
for
about
your
Well, you're
time.
welcome.
The video? Do you want
Yeah.